and welcome to the Peas and Quiet podcast. On this podcast, we discuss all things gardening, including growing veggies and flowers and how to create your dream backyard alongside nature. My name is Robin. I'm an environmental scientist turned full-time flower farmer and gardener, and I'll be your host for this podcast. On today's episode, I have my partner Scott joining me for a bit of a catch-up chat about what's going on in our lives at the moment in terms of moving, starting afresh, and how we've made intentional decisions with work and our relationship to work towards living a more peaceful and quiet life that also involves running a backyard business. We also chat about some of the challenges we faced trying to find a like-minded community and what steps we've taken and are continuing to take to reduce our cost of living while also working towards buying property and living our dream. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to the land, waters and communities. We pay our respects to elders past and present and thank them for protecting our lands, coastlines and ecosystems. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Welcome back to another episode of the Peas and Quiet podcast. Today's episode is a special one because my partner Scott is joining me to have a little bit of a chat today. Do you want to say hi?
Hello.
Today we're going to talk about, we're basically just going to do a little bit of a life update and a catch-up podcast kind of video or recording. This is both going up on YouTube, not like the filming of us, but just the recording, but also on podcasting apps. But this podcast is all about like talking about your backyard dream, creating your backyard dream garden. And that's something that we've definitely been working on the last few years. And there's quite a few things changing in our lives right now. And I thought we would just kind of share what our dream is for the next few years and kind of just, do a bit of a catch up, talk about some things that are changing in our lives. And also just kind of like how we have worked through some challenges that we've been faced with. And hopefully it'll be an interesting podcast for you all. I might let Scott introduce himself, just maybe tell us a bit about who you are, what you do for work, that kind of thing.
Sure. Who am I? So I have a slightly different lifestyle to Robin, but I work full-time as an IT project manager, and I could try and explain further what I do, but I don't want to get into the situation where I start boring people.
What's like an example of something that you do day to day kind of thing? And you also work from home as well.
Yeah, so I work from home managing a project with a bunch of people on it where there's a lot of obviously project management stuff, but implementation of some IT solutions and things like that. I can't get into too much of the specifics, but
top secret.
It's top secret.
And cool. And you said a different lifestyle. I mean, we live the same lifestyle, but like what you mean by that is more so you don't really have like a gardening background or homesteading or raising animals kind of thing background.
Yeah, background's probably a better way to describe it.
Or hobbies. It's not your primary hobby to be out in the garden, planting plants, growing flowers, running a flower farm.
Yeah, I'd say it's not my happy space. Well, that's not true because I actually enjoy being out there. Yeah. But it's not my like default, I guess, hobby or like happy space to go to. I'm probably your more stereotypical IT nerd, hence the job.
So what do you like to do in your spare time?
I think I like a bit of gaming. I like quite a lot of sort of technology related things. I would say, learning a bit of coding and stuff at the moment.
Yeah.
all stuff that I find interesting, but I know other people might not.
Yeah, so we've had a very different set of hobbies that have kind of come together. We've been together for how many years? 7?
7.
Yeah, 7 years now. And yeah, we've gone through a lot of change. We're also not married. I do get a few people asking me that, whether we are married or not, and we're not married. I personally don't really have, a big fascination with weddings and getting married. It's never really been a priority for me. We're both not religious, so it's not something we've ever really desired too much. Maybe one day.
Yeah, it's not something that we're necessarily against. It's just for our lives, wouldn't really change much about our lives. So there's not really a massive desire right now to get married just for the sake of it. I know that's different for other people. Some people really like the idea of being married for whatever reason, and that's totally fine.
We have
not really a priority for us.
Yeah, we have other goals, and that's something we'll probably speak about today. One of those was starting a family. It was definitely a priority, which I'll probably be about 24 weeks pregnant when this comes out. So, we're starting a family, and we're working towards moving to like our dream lifestyle. And that's what the main theme of today's episode is going to be about, those steps that we've taken and kind of like where we've been, where we are right now currently, and where we're going in the future. And I'm hoping it'll kind of just be, just like a relaxing chat for you to listen to, maybe inspire you to make some changes in your life as well. But primarily it's just us kind of sharing our journey today. Right?
Yeah, definitely. That's cool. The aim, at least.
Yeah, just a check-in. Because I will just say there are lots of things changing in our lives. But we currently live on the south coast of New South Wales, Australia. If you don't watch my YouTube videos, I run a backyard flower farm, although I'm kind of slowing that down at the moment just with pregnancy. And also just we're filming this first thing in the morning. So if I sound a bit tired, that's just why. It's just kind of how it worked out this week. But we haven't always lived here. We met in Brisbane, and we moved in together after maybe like a year or so of dating, I think.
Yeah, I think it's about a year.
Yeah, and we moved into a townhouse. It was a very large townhouse, definitely bigger than what we needed, but it was very modern, very clean, pretty. It didn't have a very big backyard though. It just had like a little courtyard backyard, but it was very convenient for us because you were going into the city every day for work and I was going to uni. It was very close. So yeah, that's kind of where we started out, and that's kind of where I started my love for gardening and wanting to grow food. And I also started my YouTube channel there as well. And then we moved out to a little bit more of a it's not really countryside, but remote. I don't know.
Yeah.
A rural area, but like still in
not
Brisbane.
Even that rural, really. It was like 40
acreage.
minutes outside of Brisbane.
Yeah.
Well, it's still in Brisbane,
acreage.
but outside of Brisbane City.
Yeah.
Yeah. Acreage is probably the best way to describe it.
Yeah, the west of Brisbane. And at the time, I don't think we really appreciated that place very much, did we?
I think we appreciate it. We tend to focus maybe more on the negative side of things.
Yeah, I think because we came from a very new townhouse with like multiple bathrooms, everything was brand new. It was like, how many bedrooms? Like 3 or 4 bedrooms, or it had a lot of space. And this house that we moved to was a little bit more run down, still very cute. And to this day, like it's probably our favorite place that I've lived in with you. And that's where I did kind of start my garden, and we grew heaps of food there. It was also a place that I kind of started to change my thoughts about what I wanted in my future, I feel. And I started to kind of, delve into the YouTube side of things, making videos and growing food, and just seeing the potential that had to also bring in a little bit of income as well. And I think the main reason we wanted to move out a little bit further was we'd kind of had enough of the hustle and bustle of city life. I don't know. And wanted a little bit more peace and calm. So it was also a bit cheaper as well. But I don't think it was until that house that we both started to, kind of understand what we both wanted out of life. Do you agree?
I think, we sort of, that place definitely put into perspective things we valued, because it, while the house itself was a bit older and the overall like property was, a bit, I wouldn't say run down, but like needed a good amount of work. We still found ourselves preferring being out there as opposed to being in the city, which really highlighted that we wanted to have a piece of land in a somewhat peaceful and quiet area that we can really put a lot of work into, and sort of make it what we want.
Yeah, it was also during COVID as well, and I think it was probably the best place to be because it was so peaceful, and we didn't feel like we were kind of cooped up in a small apartment because we had a really large garden, and the change didn't seem as dramatic. I feel like for like people like us as well, the overall COVID, whilst it was restrictive in a lot of ways, we're definitely both homebodies anyway. So I think having a sort of nice property and a nice peaceful spot to just be at home and probably meant that we weren't as affected by COVID as I think some other people would be. And I was, I could have the ability to work from home. I was doing my PhD back then. And was that where you started to work from home for good, or?
Yeah, that's when I transitioned to working from home.
And I think that was really important also in our decisions with what happened next, because I think we just realized that we liked it so much. And that was kind of where we felt, or it's where I felt most happy, was having you at home. I like spending time with you, not like always in the same room. Obviously, we like to do our own things, but it's just really nice to have you at home working. And it was something that I could see in future that I didn't really want. I didn't want you to go back into the city to go into work every day. It was also, you really seemed very drained as well. Each day after you'd come home.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there are definitely some people that really get energized going into an office and I guess meeting up with people from work and engaging with work that way. I don't, especially since I think I was probably spending almost 3 hours on the road every day between driving in and driving home, which really, like, if you're having to leave at 7 to get into work and then you're not getting home till like 6:30, like, to me that's a pretty standard day for like maybe like some older generations and things like that, as in like that was kind of the norm. But it's definitely not something I've wanted in my life, and as soon as I could work from home I immediately felt a lot more relaxed and happy.
I think you were also a bit more healthy as well. Like, you had time then to put more time into eating better food and going to the gym as well, and there was a lot more flexibility in taking that travel time out of your day.
Yeah, I think because I would be able to just go to the gym in the morning and get home for 9 o'clock to start working, whereas I think I was absolutely no energy mentally and physically. Yeah, and so we kind of just realized that was what we really enjoyed, and we kind of wanted to make that more of a reality, to move into our own place one day that we own. And that's when we decided to save a little bit more money and actually move in with your parents, which wasn't too far away from where we were living anyway. So, I mean, you kind of grew up in that area.
west of Brisbane, and it was very familiar. It's very beautiful, and I honestly miss it so much. Like I've been getting so nostalgic for that area. And yeah, that really helped us to save a lot of money living with your parents for, I don't think it was a year, was it? It was a bit under a year, maybe.
Yeah, if it wasn't a year, it was like maybe like 10, 11 months.
Yeah. We were still paying like a little bit of rent to kind of cover costs and help your parents out a little bit. But it definitely did allow us to save a good chunk of money, which was nice. And it kind of just removed that stress off myself as well for having to get a job on top of my PhD at the time. If you're unaware, a stipend for a PhD is not very much money at all.
I think it's actually almost less than minimum wage.
It is, yeah. So you're kind of actually forced to work other jobs while doing a PhD, which is considered a 37.5-hour work week in the contract.
Which is often not even the case.
No.
It's a lot more work, I'd say.
Yeah, the work was really, really weird. And I was doing tutoring on the side. And it's a whole different topic, my PhD, that I'm very glad to have closed that chapter. But it did allow me to not have the pressure of like working a part-time job as well, because our costs were lowered. And that was just the main thing that we wanted. We wanted to build up our savings. So that's when we started to do that. And after a while, we kind of decided maybe living with your parents for a while it was time for us to go.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really anything to do, I think, with necessarily my parents. I think we just both wanted to sort of be on our own again.
We needed our own space again. And again, like I really loved living with your parents because, you know, we've been chatting the last few weeks. Like I've been talking about how much I miss it and that area. But it served its purpose of us kind of spending time with your family and saving money. And I think another big thing, because we started growing a lot more food as well. And I was really heavily into gardening, like every single day, growing heaps of food as much as I could. But I was really restrained at how much I could physically do outside because of the weather. And we both really desired kind of a cool change. And I know you also really enjoy cooler weather as well, or don't exactly love the humidity and the heat of Brisbane.
Yeah, I think it's the constant humidity and there's no escape from it. Whereas even down here, it's quite warm in the sun if you're in the sun, but as soon as you get into the shade, it's immediately cool, even on like a summer day. But in Brisbane and most of Queensland, it's very, very humid and very hot, and the only way to really deal with that is to have some air conditioning cranked.
Yeah.
And that's also just, you know, it does use a lot of power, and we'd rather be somewhere where we can just have some windows open and have a breeze and not have to worry about using too much energy with air conditioning and things like that. We also both just enjoy cold weather. I think it suits us a bit more, being like all rugged up at home and feeling pretty
but
comfy.
Still able to do things outside and grow things and like not frozen ground kind of thing, like, or snow. We don't really have a lot of that in Australia anyway. But yeah, we definitely wanted a cooler change because I think you were also like really starting to kind of like have an interest in growing food. I think after like we harvested potatoes, that was kind of really fun. Yeah. And just all of the fresh food, you could we both started to understand how good it tasted, just the flavors and how simple it can actually be to grow a lot of your own food. And we decided to move. We had an opportunity to move down south where we are right now to South Coast, New South Wales, to live in one of my family homes that my Ulma and Ulpa built. They've both since passed away, but we do rent this out now. So we do pay rent here, and it's a little bit of a reduced rent as well, I will say that. So we can also you know, we're in a very, very privileged position to be able to continue saving money here. And that was the kind of catalyst for why we could move down here and continue saving money for a deposit. We also went on a really big holiday. We wouldn't have been able to do that if we were both paying the extreme amounts of rent that currently exists in where we used to live. I don't even want to know what that townhouse would be right now. Yeah, it was like almost $500 a week, which I think was pretty good. And I don't know what it would be like now, probably close to like $700-800, I reckon, for that townhouse. So we wouldn't have been able to do a lot of the things that we've done without changing where we move. And again, I know we're in a privileged position to be able to move around a little bit. And we've also made a lot of sacrifices as well in terms of living in places that haven't been, I don't want to say they haven't been ideal. They just haven't been able, we haven't, you know, had full control over what we can do in the backyard and things like that, really.
Yeah, like I think coming back to that point about sort of why we wanted to move to a more cold climate as well. I think we both enjoy a bit more of a seasonal aspect to life. It is a bit nicer when you might have a few quieter months in winter and you can actually sort of almost, I wouldn't say rest, but there's sort of a bit more downtime and you can start focusing on a few other things. It also means you can grow some different things. There's some stuff that we can grow down here that I don't think we could actually have ever grown back in Brisbane.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of things that we like to grow, like brassicas and carrots, and I feel like tomatoes do a lot better down here. We often had a problem with fruit fly up in southeast Queensland, so it was really difficult to grow larger tomatoes. We only really grew a lot of cherry tomatoes, and even that was kind of, you know, in the cooler seasons of the year.
Yeah, definitely. I think even, you know, in the future when we move again, I think, you know, being able to grow like apples and things like that would be really cool, which we couldn't really do in Brisbane.
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of reasons, and we've both really enjoyed the broad area here. It's so beautiful in terms of the beaches, national parks, walks, and the climate has been really nice, apart from maybe all of the rain that we've had. That was very unexpected. Too much rain. Yeah. But other than that, there's been a few other things that have kind of also, I don't know, they've kind of soured our experience for living here. And we'll briefly touch on a few of these because I'll say now we're planning on moving. I've kind of shared that on our YouTube channel, and that's probably going to happen hopefully next year. And there's a lot of reasons for that have kind of happened over the last few years here. I feel like the first year living here was okay.
Yeah, I think either we were just focusing on other things, or maybe we weren't really aware of some of the issues. But I think the first year was okay.
Because we've been here two and a bit years now.
Yeah.
And the first year we had a lot of rain, so it was pretty hard to be outside a lot. And I feel like the rain definitely quietened the suburb a lot. And it's been in the last year and a bit that we've really noticed there's certain things in this suburb. It's a bit of an older suburb, and the blocks are I'd say they're quite large. Some of them smaller than others, but it's a decent sized suburb, and also everyone's not super, super crammed in. But that does mean that pretty much everyone has a dog or multiple dogs. And that's been something that's been really challenging for us, actually, for a little bit. Not that we don't like dogs, obviously.
Yeah,
you grew up with dogs, so
yeah, it's just the approach I think a lot of people take to having dogs, where it's, I guess maybe there's not a whole lot of responsibility taken for actually looking after your dog and training it. It's a lot of lonely dogs that just sort of sit in the backyard for pretty much most of their life. And,
yeah,
you know, it's not just that we're annoyed that they're barking. We're also annoyed that, you know, these poor animals basically don't get to go outside the house and go for walks and have like all the, you know, fun and experiences most animals should be able to have.
Yeah. We should maybe like paint the picture of the suburb a little bit more. It's, I don't know. It's not, I haven't met many people around here that grow their own food really, or that are too interested in getting to know one another in terms of our neighbours. We've tried and it hasn't really been something that's worked out. And I do feel like there is definitely a lack of community here, or it's more people just, you know, going to work every day, coming home and not really interested in a community, more so just keeping to themselves. And yeah, a lot of people do also have they
have a bad reaction, I think, a lot of the time to even, you know, people like us. And I say people like us people in the context like of you know,
greenies. No,
yeah, they think we're like, you know, they look at us as these like greeny kind of people, yeah, when really we're just like we think we're pretty normal.
We think we're pretty normal, yeah.
But you know, you mentioned the term permaculture or something, and I think people, it's not known, yeah, around here. No one around here, I don't want to say no one because they might, but I haven't observed a lot of permaculture principles in this suburb. And it has been a challenge for me to not have a sense of community around me. It's something I really do value. And I know there are, you know, places I can go, and I do have a lot of like friends and people I know. They don't live directly close to me though. But I do know where those people are. So it's not like there's no one around this area growing, like not growing food. There's a lot of people growing food and flowers, and it's just, there's not a sense of community where we live right now. Yeah, I guess I could give like an example of what we're talking about. People that have a green bin, fill it up with grass.
No, we don't have green bins here. We actually don't even have a green bin in our council.
Sorry, you're right.
So
no, it's
ridiculous.
Not a green bin. It's people filling up their normal red bin with grass and other like organic material, and then asking the question of, my bin's full, where do I put the rest of this organic material? Which just seems so insane to me that you wouldn't just have like some type of compost pile, or even just the fact that you're just putting this like organic material into a bin that's just going to go to landfill is just so bizarre to me.
Yeah, it's also very, when I say people don't grow their own food, what I mean is they grow grass, like lawn. And
take a lot of pride in their lawn.
Take a lot of pride in their lawn, and that's we can leave it at that. And I'm sure a lot of people listening to this podcast will know the type of people I'm talking about. But if you've watched any of my videos, it's probably every second one I'll have to excuse the sound of mowing in the background, because geez, people love mowing around here. And again, you know, like none of what we're saying is just like we think we're better or whatever. Like, no, I'm just saying it's not the kind of vibe and the community that we have enjoyed being around or are interested in learning about lawn care. Yeah. Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, well, I just guess it's more of like an ideology behind it. You know, there's a lot of ideology behind growing food so that you can share that with people, so that you can trade your food with someone, so that you can sort of set up a almost organic like bartering type system or something like that.
Yeah.
Whereas when we see people that I'd say borderline obsessed with keeping their lawn at 2 centimeters high and making sure that there's no imperfections, that's not really for anyone else in the community.
No.
That's just for you, because honestly.
I don't
You probably
even know
have
why.
some kind of anxiety, feeling judged about how your lawn looks.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something I'm not too. I don't really understand it too much, the psychology behind lawn care, but that's definitely one aspect. Another aspect that I will briefly touch on, if you're okay with me chatting about, is just our neighbour. One of them. We're also
just a few.
We're sandwiched
neighbours.
between all neighbours except one of them, but just one doesn't really make a difference. But pretty much every single neighbour that we have has at least one or two dogs, and particularly the neighbour next to us has some dogs. Again, they are never taken on walks or anything like that. They're really high energy dogs. So naturally, when I'm going out in the garden and doing things, they'll just kind of stand at the fence and bark the whole time. And after just having, a few discussions, we thought everything was okay with the neighbour, and then all hell broke loose the other month, and they were very much not okay and less than pleased at how we choose to live our life, apparently, which all came out after we kind of just spoke about their dogs being a bit of a nuisance, and was really, really ripped into, I'll say, by the neighbour.
Yeah, and we had done at no point mentioned anything about them personally or anything to do with their lifestyle. We just specifically said, hey, every time we're in our backyard, your dog's at the fence going mental. It also looks like it needs to probably be walked. It's very, very crazy a lot of the time. And these are like farm dogs. They need
they're cattle dogs.
Need to be walked like twice a day minimum, or else they just go mental.
Yeah, and it's so, we both love animals and we both love dogs, and
that dog is really cute when you're
I
up
know.
close to it and it's not barking at you. It's just that the poor thing never gets to go for a walk anywhere.
Yeah, but I just found it really interesting how when our neighbour did kind of contact us in a very aggressive, very forward way.
An emotional state.
They were very
how
emotional.
I would say.
But they also just started to pick up on things like the fact that we are home alone, not home alone, that we are home all the time was something that was a really big thing for them that they didn't agree with.
We have the quote, I think something along the lines of, I have a real job, I think was what was said.
Or I actually go to work every day.
Work, because working from home I don't think has ever been calculated as a real job, I guess, which is, again, they've started then digging into our lives when we had said nothing, I think, at all in that context to them. We were just, the main topic was the dogs, and
we've supported their business before, and
so it seemed a bit strange, but
it seemed strange that topic was brought up, and that really was another thing that was like, okay, I'm not really comfortable living around people like this. Like, I want to encourage a lot of businesses working from home. It's what I talk about on this podcast, is how to start a business from home, how to grow your own food and start your dream backyard and flower farming. And despite doing all of that, it was still just such a trigger point for them to bring up the fact that dogs should be allowed to bark and do whatever, because most people aren't at home anyway, so it's fine. And I just thought that was really sad, like, because we've spent our whole relationship developing this love for being at home and creating a business from home. And again, if you don't work from home, that's fine. It's everyone's entitled to do what they want. But I don't think it's something to be shamed at or think less of a person who works from home, and to think that it's not a real job. That really kind of, it hit me hard, because it's something that I've wanted to do. Like, I mean, I do want to be a stay-at-home mum for a while, but I also want to run my own business. And I know you also really love being at home.
Yeah, I think it also just shows a complete lack of understanding of kind of where the world's heading. The way things are, the property prices and all that, everyone's going to have to be moving further and further away from major centres So unless you want to be driving for 2 hours, and then since there's everyone else in theory would be driving, if that's the world you think, the way you think things should be, then yeah, you'll be driving ages to get to work. Or you can have a lot of people that, let's be honest, realistically don't need to go into an office, can work from home. They don't have to spend money on fuel. They don't have to spend that time on driving. And it also means there's less people on the roads, meaning especially around here, there's probably less damage and all that to the roads and less traffic, which to me seems like the logical way to move forward. Yeah. But I just, yeah, it's just an attitude, I think, especially from neighbours / some other people that we've engaged with around here, that you're very resistant, I guess, to anything new, which I think is not uncommon, especially
I think in established older suburbs, it can be really hard to come in and be the people, quote unquote, only being here for 5 minutes while everyone else has been here for 20 years. Does that give that shouldn't give me any less credibility or just ability to be able to live how I want to live, though? And
I guess the best way to highlight it is we just never felt like welcome. We've never felt, I guess, like, it sounds cringy, but accepted for, like, you know, the kind of lifestyle we have and the way we want to live.
And it's not like we haven't tried. I mean, I've given our neighbours so much food, and they know what we're about in terms of growing flowers and, you know, inviting wildlife into our backyards. And it's just not something that a lot of people around here align with. And that's, you know, that's fine. There's other hobbies that are very much more prevalent in the area. Cars being one of them. loud cars is definitely probably one of the interests and hobbies that a lot of people have around here. And it's not, there's also just been a lot of crime that we've kind of observed, and it's something that, again, I don't feel comfortable raising a child in this area. And so all of those things combined, we've really made the decision to move and go somewhere else, basically.
Yeah. And I also just want to highlight as well that we're talking about, like, specific people, and for all we know, that could only be like half of the suburb or half of the area, because in sort of juxtaposition to one of our neighbours, our other neighbour is a nice sort of elderly woman who keeps to herself. She does grow her own food and has lots of trees. Yeah,
but I never see her picking any. She has so many fruit trees, and I've tried to engage with her so much, but, you know, when there's just a certain amount of times that you can, like, get someone's attention, I feel like I'm at that sometimes, where they don't live here full time as well. So it's kind of hard for me to just ask, like, hey, can we trade this for that? It's again, what I said before, a lot of people just really keep to themselves. And it is very hard to kind of, have that engagement with neighbours. So although a lot of that is very negative, I do just want to just wrap that section up and just do say, like, we have, like I said at the start, this area is beautiful. We have really enjoyed the broader community. Okay, it's not just all negative. I've loved doing markets and growing this flower farm here, and that has definitely been the highlight when I can engage with those people and community members that do align well with what we want. That's, you know, where we got it, at markets. And it's just that, you know, you have that hit of I don't know, happiness and being around community, but then you've got to come back home every day and just be reminded of all the other unhappy things. And although it can seem like on videos, you know, that things are going really well, it's been really difficult for our mental health, or my mental health specifically, and is something that, you know, I just can't do anymore. So yeah, it's got to that point, really.
And we're at least very privileged to be able to say, you know, we don't actually want to, you know, we don't really want to live here anymore, and to be able to move in the direction of moving somewhere else. A lot of people don't have that option. So we are very fortunate to be able to do that, which I guess moves us on to the sort of next topic, which is moving
Yay.
And where we want to go.
where we're moving. Well, we're not going to say where we're moving yet because we're just kind of finalizing a few things. But I will say, so throughout this whole journey of our relationship and moving to all these different places, like I said before, the main thing was saving money and saving as much money as we can. And I think we've made a few good sacrifices to be able to do that. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, in general, I think I wouldn't even say it's a sacrifice. There's obviously things we have sacrificed, but our lifestyle, I think some people go, all right, we're really going to have to cut back on going out and buying expensive things. But for me, I don't really feel like that's a sacrifice because we've never really done that anyway. It's just not really how we live. We don't go out to fancy restaurants. So yeah, I can't even pretend to know what expensive things to spend money on because we just don't really do it. We live very simply. Most of the things we enjoy doing don't actually cost a lot of money. You know, going for a nice walk in the national park, I think that costs the cost of a yearly pass to the park, and that's about it.
Yeah.
And going to a market or something like that as well is also, I mean, you might buy a couple of donuts or a slice of pizza, of but there isn't any major cost to that. We don't really have expensive lifestyle.
Yeah, we've made the decision to really, well, not even the decision, it's just how we are.
It's naturally how we are, I think.
We naturally don't spend a lot of money, but it hasn't just been because we don't want to. It's also had an intention behind it, and that is because we've wanted to move for a long time. Pretty much before we moved here, we knew that we wanted our own place to buy, that is. And that's what we've done. We have purchased a piece of land. Finally.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wouldn't say finally.
At the right time. It all happened because of us planning and being intentional. And again, we could probably do a whole another episode on how we have saved money, things that we don't spend money on. But I kind of wanted to keep this more like our dreams and, how we're moving forward with our backyard dreams and things like that. But yeah, there's been an intention behind it is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And we were always weighing up whether we wanted to find the piece of land with a house on it and just buy that, or like we have done, buy a piece of land on its own. And I think the main thing that led us to buying this piece of land was just, I don't think we were actually a bit bummed out, I think, going to see this piece of land for the first time, because up to that point we hadn't really had much success in finding anything that we were that interested in. The
property market is depressing.
Yeah.
Very depressing.
And I can't even, and that's we were looking in relatively
rural areas.
I'd say, kind of hour outside major cities and things like that. But yeah, I think we were a bit sad. We weren't super, I guess, energized at that point because we had a pretty bad time looking at stuff. And, something that was in our price range, you'd get to the property and go, oh, wow, there's lots of lots of issues.
It's falling apart.
There's,
yeah, we saw some pretty bad houses and
for
properties.
Prices that you would look at and go, that's quite expensive for a house.
What do you actually get? Yeah.
That has cigarette stains on the roof or
mold everywhere
and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, then we just happened to go visit this piece of land, and it's a really nice piece of land. We both walked onto the property and kind of stood in the middle of it, and we're just like, wow, this is
amazing.
So peaceful. We looked up to the top of sort of some mountains and things like that. And it was just so quiet.
Yeah. And it's not in the middle of nowhere. It's still got a bit of a community around, but it's not sandwiched between houses, and we've bought a few acres, so it's not a small piece of land. We've definitely got our work cut out for us. And I'm very, very excited for our plans to move, and the plan is basically to build a house on this piece of land, and we've had to do this in stages though, so purchased the land. Now we're waiting a little bit just to save up a little bit more money to put onto the mortgage to then be able to build. It's definitely a slow process for us because we're just on the one full-time income at the moment, supplemented by whatever I can earn with the flowers and YouTube. And, now we're having a baby as well. So we're doing this at a slow pace, but we still always have that in mind in terms of the decisions that we make every single day, where our money goes, even what I'm doing in the backyard. Like, I'm always finding ways to, make a few extra dollars here and there with growing more flowers as much as I can physically do right now. But again, the intention has been there, and it's been a long, slow journey, but we've definitely stuck to it.
Yeah, and I think one of the key reasons about why we've bought the land and not bought a property like a house and land is also just it allows us to buy the land now, right, and be paying it off sooner. It's also the kind of thing where even if we decide, no, we don't want to go there anymore, it's still a good investment. That land is going to be going up in value.
Yeah, we honestly couldn't afford to buy land and a house. That wasn't in our budget. So unless it was a really derelict house,
a house that you would probably need to redo anyway. Yeah.
And we were looking in pretty remote areas as well, not like very close to cities. And when we say an hour out of a city, it's like even an hour out of a larger town. Like, it's more remote areas. And I'll be sharing all of this information of like where we're moving and whatever. It's just for kind of privacy reasons. We wanted to keep it to ourselves while we figure actually out how to move and get to where we want to be. It is a bit further south as well, so we've got to consider actually how much do we take from this place and how to move everything. But it really has helped my mental health so much to know that we are moving forward to something, and we will be creating our absolute dream property and dream landscape. I know Scott knows I've been pretty much obsessed with watching permaculture videos and wanting to create permaculture gardens, and I've already started kind of like planning out in my mind how I'd love the garden to be. We're really interested in growing a lot of fruit and having fruit trees. I know that's something you're excited about.
Yeah, definitely. I think having an orchard of just a bunch of fruit trees would be really nice. Like the idea of just going out and like picking fruit off a tree and just having that. I don't think, obviously, living in Brisbane, I haven't really done that too much.
No, but we did plant a lot of fruit trees back at your parents' place, and they're now harvesting so much fruit.
They get to enjoy it.
So much lovely, beautiful fruit that I wish we could enjoy after planting all those trees for them. And we could have done that here as well. I'll say that we could have planted fruit trees here, but again, our intentions were to not spend our money that way. A lot of people have asked, why don't you plant fruit trees or why don't you have chickens? And that's because this has always been a temporary place. We didn't want to invest a lot of money in here. We
didn't want to, set up like a chicken coop and have a bunch of chickens here and then have to move and either figure out some ridiculous solution to moving the chickens with us or then having to find new homes for them.
I don't think we could have had chickens with a cattle dog next door anyway.
No, that
wouldn't have worked out.
Would have been interesting.
But hopefully, I don't know, I wanted this to just be a little bit of a catch up, check in, long form kind of podcast, because I do mention certain things on my YouTube channel about moving, and I wanted to share a little bit more on this podcast to keep you all updated. I'll definitely be sharing our journey on building a house. We're going very small in terms of, we're not doing a tiny home, but we're doing a small home, something that's very manageable for us and that we can afford, because again, we're on budget constraints, but we don't, we don't want something that's really, really small, because you do work from home. And that's the plan, to continue doing that while we kind of establish some other kind of business on the property. I would love to continue doing flower farming, but I'm also interested in other business ventures that we might do in terms of, I don't know, growing different foods, whatever, we can grow in the area that we might be able to create different products or gaps in the market to fill that. But yeah, there's lots to do, and we're very excited to kind of talk more permaculture and create permaculture style gardens. So there'll probably be a lot of permaculture episodes coming very soon because I've got lots to say on permaculture. And we're also just excited to be out in nature a little bit more, and to actually live in the country and to, be around.
Have our kids experience that as well.
Yeah,
it's a big thing.
It's really important for us.
I feel like that gave a bit of a drive to really crack on with that stuff as well. I want our kids to experience all the things that we really value and the things that I think overall will probably bring a lot of happiness. Yeah,
because we both grew up in very, I don't know, nature setting. I don't know. We both grew up
away from the city, and both really valued the aspects of living that came along with that, which, I think we can't, I think you've asked me before, or people ask, what's your main goal in life? And it's my main goal in life is to just have a peaceful life. And it sounds a bit corny, but it's just, I don't have anything specific I want the mansion, or I want this amount of money, or I want even this number of kids or whatever. It's just, I just want to find peace.
I think that's what we've really been craving for the last few years. And it's amazing how much just even bird sounds can change my mood. I was sitting upstairs on the balcony the other day, and I could hear the whitbird that lives kind of in a little rainforest patch near us. And it was quiet, and I could hear the whitbird, and oh my goodness, I felt just such a sense of peace and calm. And having trees and nature around me, I just realized that is so important to me. I really, really need that. And that's what we're going to be focusing on for our property, is building biodiversity, growing food, growing flowers, and really giving back to nature so that it can kind of give back to us for what we also desire.
Yeah, and I think, as we said, the end goal of doing all those things is that we get to live a happy, peaceful life where, a lot of, the normal day-to-day things that tend to bother a lot of people maybe won't bother us. So I guess to just, cap the whole sort of podcast off, so we met in Brisbane. We sort of quickly identified that we both have a lot of very similar values and a sort of similar goals in life. Which sort of led us to sort of, as we said, during that, I think around that COVID period, realizing that, we really do want to buy a piece of land and really do what we can to make it our special place. And in order to do that, we also want to live in a different climate. So that's why obviously we moved down to South Coast, New South Wales. And as we kind of discussed, it's not ideal for what we really want where we are right now, but it has also given us a lot of drive to really pursue what we wanted. And we did achieve a lot of goals and things we set out, which is, buying a piece of land. And, we're well on our way to having our first child, which is beyond exciting for both of us. I don't know if we discussed a lot of that. But we are both so thrilled.
We've wanted to become parents for a long time. It was pretty much very agreed upon when we first met, really.
I said 8 kids or I'm out.
Okay, it might be a bit much, but we'll see. But I really agree with what you said, and it's been the main things that is a big takeaway, I feel, is it's just been real slow stepping stones. And it has been feeling really hard, a lot of those stepping stones. But now that we're kind of, we have the vision, my mental health has been a lot better to be able to make even more changes and more adding to those stepping stones to getting to where we want to be. But it hasn't happened overnight. It's been 7 years of working through a relationship and all the ups and downs. but a lot of intention behind it to, even though we have completely different hobbies, you still really value the same things. Being out in nature, having a quiet, peaceful life is what we both want. And we can definitely achieve that through, or we have achieved that through, running a backyard business. It's been really important for me to bring in some kind of income. And it's definitely something that when I think now that we have the time to really intentionally plan what to do with the property is something that hopefully in future I can see growing to hopefully, maybe one day you don't have to work for the company that you work for, and that we can really just keep reducing our cost of living.
Yeah, I think that's the overall goal. I mean, ideally, both of us working from home on whatever business venture it is, I guess at this point doesn't specifically matter, to then be able to free ourselves from sort of relying on a lot of external sources of income and things like that.
Yeah, which we'll only be able to do if we have a low cost of living in general. And
I think also just the point you made about how we have different hobbies and stuff, it is a good point to make that you don't necessarily have to be into the exact same things to make this stuff work. As long as you have an overarching ideology or overarching value in your life. Two people with vastly different life experience and vastly different interests even can actually find a happy life together.
Yeah. And right now we both have different roles. I'm obviously going to, we're both going to raise this baby, but it's in the forefront of my mind right now, and you're working full time to kind of support that. And I mean, I feel like role will also be designing our garden, helping to design the house for you to also have that peaceful, quiet life that you want. And we have a very agreed upon ways on how to get to that, really. So, yeah. Do you have anything else to add to the end of this podcast? We've got one cat that's trying to get our attention, so we might have to wrap this up soon.
Yeah, the director's telling us that we've only got 2 minutes left on the set.
Yeah.
We're in his sunbed. So, yeah, I don't really have anything else to add. I think we covered a lot of what we sort of wanted to get across. It was just, mainly to give a understanding of where we're at, both together and I guess individually.
Yeah. And one day we will continue to work towards our dreams and goals, and we'll definitely share more of that and how we're designing the property and the garden, and how we're finishing up this flower farm here, what we're doing. I'll be talking about that in some future episodes, just the plan to actually wrap up the business here. And as we, look forward to our baby boy later this year. But if you do have any questions for us, please do let me know. You can send me a message on Instagram at the Peace and Quiet Podcast, or you can leave a comment on YouTube. This will be up on YouTube or any podcasting app that you listen to as well. And we can definitely do some future episodes if you have specific questions for us to talk about as a couple. We're happy to answer those. All right, well, thank you so much for listening to today's episode, and thank you so much, Scott, for joining in on the episode.
No worries.
Hope you enjoyed chatting.
You're very much welcome.
Yep, despite having to wake him up early in the morning, although we were up anyway. But
we get up this time anyway.
Yeah, it was a nice time to do it, I think, in the morning. So if you did enjoy this episode, then make sure to give the podcast a rating. 5 stars would be very much appreciated, although it's totally up to you what you want to rate the podcast. And definitely like and subscribe if you are listening on YouTube as well. So I'll be back very soon for another episode. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are in the world. And until my next one, happy gardening, everyone. Bye.